This past week I was away for 5-6 days for a study break. It gave me an opportunity to get into a book called Turning Ourselves Inside Out. It's that book about thriving Christian communities is going to be the kind of background for a sermon series beginning today. Beginning with hope, ending with hope. We're also going to talk a little bit next week about humility and the power of love, and then a sense of integrity defined as knowing who we are as a congregation and actually being who we are. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about something that is incredibly crucial for all of us, for everyone, and that is hope. Where do we find hope? I actually come from a freakishly strong family. My father was so incredibly powerfully built. It was beyond my imagination. And he tells the story of his uncle. His uncle was a blacksmith in the town that he lived in Holland. And as a blacksmith, he loved his work. Every day he would go whistling, walking to work. And one day, 4 of his friends, they thought they would play a trick on him. And it took 4 of them to take his anvil out of the blacksmith's shop and place it in the center of the street. And my dad's uncle walked up, whistling the whole time, picked up the anvil by himself, put it back in place, and continued to work. That's the kind of freakishly strong I'm talking about. My dad was a carpenter, and growing up, we built roof trusses and barns, machine sheds. And sometimes it meant putting roof trusses in place on these barns. And if you can imagine a 50-foot roof truss, nowadays they actually use cranes and lifts to put these things in place. Not 40 years ago. 40 years ago, we did it all by hand. And we would drag the truss to one side, get it up on the first side. That was the easy side. The second side meant that you were carrying the full length and the full width of that wood truss and trying to wrestle it into place. It took 3 of us, my dad in the center, me on one side, my brother on the other side, who also was freakishly strong. And the 3 of us would lift at the same time on my dad's helm. Well, one time, literally, my brother's ladder and my ladder both fell away. And my dad was left, he had the center, he was on the center ladder with the truss on his shoulder. And it fell from his shoulder to his arm. And you would think that would be the end. But with literally inhuman strength, unhuman strength, he threw it up onto his shoulder, went up the ladder, and threw it off his shoulder onto the roof truss. As I said, my dad was freakishly strong. When he was 58 years old, he and I poured a concrete pad on the house that we had built. By the end of the day, I don't know if any of you have worked with concrete, it's heavy work. By the end of the day, he was still going strong. I was 31 years old at the time, and I was done like dead. The day he died, he didn't have the same strength, but he was strong. I didn't have the kind of strength that he had, but in high school and in university, I had a reputation of being strong. I don't know if any of you know Scott Sinclair, a fellow Presbyterian minister. He and I were at Camp Iona one summer, and Scott was the out-tripper, and so we went on a canoe trip, an overnight canoe trip. On the way back, we ran into some really heavy weather, and the sun disappeared, it got really cold, it was raining, so we had to get off the river. We found a little shed, basically, but it was nailed shut with a 2x4. And there were 4 of us trying to pull this 2x4 off the shed and get inside. And so I said to the other 3, just let me go. And I remember Scott laughing at me. And so I pulled on it. And just for a moment, I thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. You see, I'm Dutch. So I pulled harder. And with a creak, it came right off. And to this day, whenever Scott Sinclair sees me, he says, yeah, you're the strong man. No, I'm not. My dad is a strong man. And my brother was a strong man. But there's a problem with strong people. And that is that their strength ebbs away a lot faster than their egos. I can remember just a few years ago when I was building a raft for the grandkids to jump off of in the lake. And if you know anything about rafts, you build the top side, then you have to turn it over, and I tried to turn it over, and I couldn't believe it because I lifted it up, and I couldn't get it up any further. And I tried again, and I figured there's absolutely no way I am not going to call my wife, who is the only other person around. I'm not going to call a girl for help. See that pride? 10 more times I tried, and I couldn't do it. Until finally, I said to Barb, I need your help. And we lifted it, and I was shocked at how strong she was. And we turned it over really, really easily. Yeah? Strength ebbs faster than ego. It's true for churches as well. Strength ebbs faster than ego. I've been in ministry here for, almost 2 years, 3, 4, 5 months, I can't remember. I have heard Finn Stewart's name mentioned more than any other minister, all of them combined. I was golfing just this past summer, and someone said to me, oh yeah, I used to go to St. Andrews. How's Finn doing? Well, he was born in 1908. That would make him 115 right now. And I said, well, he passed away. Well, that's too bad. Finn Stewart was just a phenomenal minister, and he was. He served this congregation for 37 years. He began, I believe, in 1938, went away to be a chaplain of the war for 5 years, came back. When he began this church, it was 300 people were part of this congregation. When he left this congregation, when he retired in 1974, 3,400 people were members of this congregation. It was by far the largest Presbyterian congregation in Canada, if not the largest Protestant congregation in Canada. Finn did incredible work. He was known in the community. He was an incredible preacher and speaker. He was loved and embraced. Finn, as I understand, used to say to people, wherever you see a problem, plug it. Wherever you see an issue in the community, plug it. And there was this incredible connection with the community that meant that all of the social agencies had representation here at St. Andrews. This was the place to be. It was an incredibly strong congregation. It's not anymore. Not the way it was. For congregations, strength ebbs away faster than ego. There are still people, all of us, myself included, who wish it was like that. We just, couldn't we have that? I mean, I'd love to preach to 3,400 people. You'd love it. Do you remember the times where the music was just powerfully echoing off every crevice and every wall? It was so powerful. It was so wonderful. But what was once is no longer. What do we do when we are no longer powerful like we were? You know, when I called Barb for help, I was embarrassed, to tell you the truth. You know, maybe I can be Dutch too. But I was embarrassed because I didn't have the strength. But it's amazing when I actually embraced my vulnerability, my weakness, and called out for help, called out for a partner. It's amazing what happens. And the same is true with churches. When we recognize our vulnerability, our weakness, it's amazing what God can do. It's amazing the partners that God places in our midst, if we listen, if we have eyes to see, that can help us to do what we are called to do as a church, even when we think we are not as strong as we used to be. You know, the covenant that God had with Abraham was not a covenant where God said to Abraham, "You must be strong always. I'm counting on you to be strong." No, the covenant was, "Abraham, I will be with you in thick and in thin. I will be your God, and there will never be anything that can break that bond. Abraham, the covenant that I established with you is for you and for all of your descendants." And we celebrate that covenant today as well. And when we recognize that we don't always have to be strong, but when we can be vulnerable and reach out with that vulnerability, listening to what God is doing, not in the church, but out in the community, and develop incredible partners within the community, then we can not only see the power of God in our vulnerability, but also be what God called Abraham to be. "I will bless you," God said to Abraham, "so you will be a blessing to others." Whether we are strong, whether we are powerful, whether we are weak, whether we are vulnerable, God uses us to be a blessing to others. And that is what gives us great hope. Because it says to each and every one of us, God's not finished with us yet. St. Andrews, God is not finished with us yet. Open your eyes, open your hearts, open your ears to see what God is doing. Risk vulnerability. Listen to the community and respond in ways that enable you to be a blessing to that community. Thanks be to God. Amen.